Welcome to Discovering Africa Through Technology, the podcast series that showcases the brilliance of Africa's great minds, innovators, and experts as they tackle complex challenges with homegrown solutions driven by knowledge, technology, and innovation. Our podcast is inspired by the African Union Agenda 2063 Aspiration 7, which seeks to rebrand Africa and change negative narratives and perspectives through science, technology, and innovation. We believe that Africa has the power to solve its own development challenges and become a strong, united, resilient, peaceful, and influential global player and partner. Join us as we explore the transformative potential of technology in Africa with your host, Razia Kulatain Mwawanga, and learn from the experts driving change on the African continent.
Today, we shall be hosting a very special person who will be telling us more about what business incubators and healthcare incubators look like. Welcome to the program. My name is Razia Kulatain Mwawanga. Tell us about yourself, how you came to start this business.
Thank you, Razia Mwawanga. Thank you for having me. My name is Wilfred Njagi, co-founder, CEO of Villgrow Africa. Villgrow Africa is a healthcare business incubator working with healthcare startups across East Africa, namely Kenya, Tanzania, Ethiopia, Uganda, and recently expanding to Ghana. At Villgrow Africa, we give four main things. We give seed capital, $50,000 to $100,000. We give technical assistance, which includes mentorship, business model support, product design, human-centered design, regulatory pathways, and regulatory approval processes to commercialize a healthcare innovation. The third thing we give is access to networks. You know that in healthcare, you cannot work in a silo. You need to interlink with government, with private sector. So during our incubation, we're always looking at access to networks and also introductions to other investors so that our little money, when we use it, we're able to de-risk your business model to a point that you become attractive to these downstream investors.
What's the difference between an incubator and a hub?
There are three things. There's an accelerator, there's incubator, then there's a hub. Normally, when you talk about a hub, it's a physical space where startups come and network, and sometimes they have a hot desk where you can come rent a desk for the day or for the month. And it's just a community, a hub that facilitates a community of entrepreneurs coming together to network and build their business. Sometimes investors also walk into the hub. Sometimes the hub can also host an incubator or an accelerator, right? So think of a hub as a co-working space, like WeWork, for example, is a good example of a hub. An incubator has an actual program. An incubator can sit within a hub, or it can be a virtual incubator. Like ours is not a hub, it's an incubator that offers support mostly virtually, where we go to entrepreneurs where they are. An incubator is also long-term, compared to an accelerator. You take much longer with the startups in an incubator, and you're taking them through a program. You're hand-holding them for a much longer period. Then on the other side, we have accelerators, which come to accelerate ideas that have been incubated. So accelerators are usually short-term, cohort-based, and they also have programs. But it's very, as the word suggests, it's a crash program to move you from point A to B. Now, not everything can be accelerated, especially in healthcare. Things take a while to mature, to go through clinical trials, to get approvals. So you find that incubation is more ideal for healthcare because the nature of healthcare, things take a while. You have so many other parties involved, including regulatory agencies, that you can, more often than not, you cannot accelerate. You have to take the time it requires.
So why health incubator in Africa? What's the relevance of that? What is so different about your incubator compared to other incubators?
Good question. Why health? From your little research, when you read about malaria, or when you read about mothers dying while giving birth, or when you read about cholera outbreaks, which part of the world is mostly affected? It tends to be Africa, right? So when it comes to the global disease burden, Africa bears the brunt than anyone else, right? Because one, our healthcare systems are not fully functional. Government spending on healthcare is also below par. We haven't reached the Abuja declaration where governments of Africa met in Abuja. They agreed to commit 10% of their annual budgets to healthcare And very few countries have reached that. Very few countries have reached that. Most countries are doing 3%. It was supposed to be 10% of their GDP to healthcare. So we are underinvesting. That means then, so we see entrepreneurship as the alternative route to addressing healthcare challenges in Africa. And not only entrepreneurship, but social entrepreneurship. Why social? Because we want you to target those, the forgotten, those who have been left the bottom of the pyramid. If you're middle income, you can get healthcare anywhere. You can fly out, you can get, you're well covered. That low income bracket, when they have a healthcare emergency, there are so many other competing needs that they tend to postpone the visit to the doctor. And when they postpone, the condition worsens, it escalates, and now something that was treatable with some antibiotics now all of a sudden becomes something that requires surgery. And what happens next? Now the same family that was trying to save money by not going to the hospital, now they have to sell the asset. Maybe it's a motorbike, a boda, or a taxi, or a piece of land. Now they have to sell that to offset this catastrophic healthcare spending that has happened as a result of delay in seeking care. So we look at innovations that will help people access care much faster, more affordably, and at high quality. That's why we chose healthcare instead of anything else.
Wow, that's interesting. Catering for the marginalized, for the poor who cannot afford, and also trying to make lives easy, solving continent's most prevalent and pressing needs. So how has that worked with government bureaucracy, partnerships, and other stakeholders?
Yeah, so far so good. You have to think of government as a partner, right? Because you have to work with government. So we've had very good relationships with regulatory agencies. Like in Kenya, we work with Pharmacy and Poisons Board. In Uganda, we work with NDA, National Drug Authority. We also work with the supply distribution agencies. We try to partner with people like KEMSA. Tanzania, they use a different name, medical stores, right? These are agencies you need to be working with closely. So what we do is we facilitate introductions between startups and these agencies, and we let them see us as a partner. We try to see government as a partner, right? So what we do is we show them that we're in it together. We are here to help you solve some of the toughest challenges, healthcare challenges in your countries. So if it's in Kenya, for example, the regulator is Pharmacy and Poisons Board. In Uganda, we have the National Drug Agency. If you are trying to get approval for a product, and we show them why this product is needed and why we are trying to seek approvals, then they guide us on the process, on what, if it's a clinical trial, what stages do we need to go through. Then we work together on those study protocols. And we work hand in hand, because at the end of the day, government has to do their job. We are also trying to do our job. So it's that kind of a partnership. We've also tried to bring government actors to whenever we have conferences or panel discussions. Last time we were trying to engage Ministry of Trade here in Kenya to show them why local manufacturing of healthcare and healthcare products is good for the economy, right? So sometimes it's not just Ministry of Health. Sometimes you also need to look at other ministries, other line ministries that have a vested interest, right? Because if you look at how much we're importing in terms of healthcare products, pharmaceuticals, and everything, it's a huge amount. So by doing it locally, you're saving the government, you're earning that hard Forex USD currency. But when you're importing, you're actually spending your hard currency, and it's not good for the economy. Last year, we also participated in Global Industrialization Day, where the government invited us to speak. So we keep working together. We look for opportunities. In Kenya, we have a Kenya National Innovation Agency, which organizes the Kenya Innovation Week every December. We try to go there and run the healthcare track. We tell the agency that, you know what, we have healthcare covered.
If I am interested to be a part of the healthcare incubator, what does the process entail?
First, you put in your application. We take applications throughout the year. we tend not to do cohorts. So we rather encourage people to come individually. We have a revolving door policy. Anytime anyone can apply. Quickly, we screen your application. We do what is called a rapid assessment to see whether you are checking all the boxes. Are you committed to social impact? Do you have a viable business model? Is it scalable? Who is on your team? Is the team committed? Among many other things we look at. And then once we look at those things, we take you to the next level, which is now full diligence. Full diligence is where now we'll meet with your stakeholders, with your customers, with your partners, with some of your investors, and we want to dig more. We want to hear from the customer's voice, from your partners, to see how this is helping them solve their challenges. The detailed diligence is quite long. It takes up to 2 months. And then after that, we take you to the external investment committee, which is usually comprised of our board. And that's where the final decision is made. When the decision is made, we are now onboarded. You sign an incubation agreement. If we were getting equity, we also sign a share subscription agreement. And in that agreement, we also stipulate what are the milestones, what are the incubation milestones we're going to focus on for the duration that you'll be in the program. Convene different stakeholders. We have what is called a diagnostic panel, where, for example, if you're doing something around supply chain, we ask ourselves who is in our network, who is experienced in supply chain. We might bring Razia and a few other people that are in that space to help brainstorm this with this startup and agree what are the things you need to focus on for the next 100 days. We come up with what is called 100-day plan. And after every 3-4 months, we reconvene again and assess the progress. So these panels help the portfolio manager to have a clear focus on what he should be working on with the startup. So it makes it more clearer for the portfolio manager on what area of support, what milestones they need to be focusing on for the next 100 days.
I like the idea that it's an open door policy where somebody can just come in with the idea and you can look at it. You are unlike other people that you have to wait for a certain call for proposals and then you can do that. I also like this idea of being very thorough, because you just don't want to let somebody create something and then that's the end of it. You spoke about something called share equity. Can you tell us more about that? What is that about? So assuming I have come to you and you've done all this and I've ticked all the boxes and you take me on board, you support me, and then I finally produce that project or that product that I want. How does this share equity business look like?
That shouldn't worry you very much, because we are impact fast. We are not trying, for us, impact is our main motivation. Take minority or shareholding. Sometimes we also give grants, so not always that we take shares, but if we feel this is viable as potential, we might take maximum 5%, tend to cut you the first check. We are very lenient. It's not for the money, right? There are times that we even just give pure grants. I should also say, in addition to our own incubation program, we also get hired to run programs on behalf of others. AU NEPAD, Africa Union NEPAD, contracted us together with the BCG to run jointly to help them run a homegrown solutions accelerator program. This is looking at innovations across Africa that are homegrown, founded by local innovators to address the local solutions. This is the second time we've been hired to do that. We have another one called Investing in Innovations, I3 program. This is a supply chain Pan-Africa call across the entire continent, looking at supply chain of healthcare products and commodities and which innovations can help us. Remember, during COVID, most people died because of supply chain, right? You couldn't get what you needed as quickly as you wanted because the global supply chains were shut down. When you couldn't fly, that means things were taking longer to reach. And not just COVID-related products, even non-COVID products were taking longer to reach. So people were dying because of other diseases, not more than COVID itself, because the treatment regimens, the products required were taking longer. So diabetic patients would wait longer, hypertensive patients would wait longer. And because of that, we had more deaths coming from other comorbidities than COVID itself. So that shows you that supply chain is key for any healthcare system to work. In that I3 program, 4 incubators from 4 different regions in the continent have been selected to work with supply chain solutions. So Villgrow Africa is handling East Africa. We have CC Hub in West Africa. We have Impact Hub and Startup Bootcamp handling both Southern Africa region and the Northern Africa region. In those programs, we get paid a fee, an advisory fee. The mandate is set by the client. We bring our capacity and run those programs jointly.
Can you just talk a little bit more about these 2 other programs, if they are interested in joining any of them?
The Homegrown Accelerator, the HGS program by AU NEPAD, is a program funded by JICA. They call it Pandemic Resilience Accelerator Program because they are looking at how do we build more homegrown solutions within the continent so that we stop being at the end of the waiting line. Whenever a pandemic or any other thing comes up, we have to wait for all the other countries to first supply themselves, and then they come to us. So we need to be first in the line, and we can only be first in the line by having homegrown solutions instead of waiting. So this program, in the first year, was run by BCG Group, and Villgrow was just an advisory partner. And then they realized that a lot of our companies were in that program. So in the second round, we did it jointly. They asked Villgrow Africa to join BCG and run this program together. It's an annual program. So if you're interested, there will always be an advert. Right now, we're in the middle of the 3rd cohort. So you should be looking out for the next year's cohort if you're interested. You'll find it on our LinkedIn. You'll find it on AU NEPAD website. You find it on BCG website. And in this program, they bring also other actors. Remember, we talked about partnership with governments. In part of the advisory panel, they have government actors. They have other private sector players. They have other domain sector experts. So it's a very holistic program, quite beneficial. And most companies that go through that are able to get the right networks. Remember, networks are the key here. The right networks to help them scale those homegrown solutions. I3 program, led by Salient, Cydia. Those 2 are the lead partners. Then they contracted 4 incubators in 4 different regions. So Villgrow Africa is running the East Africa region. Distribution supply chain play. So what they've also done very innovatively is to have what is called access to market events, where they organize these events where startups can go and meet with the big pharma, with the people like the big funders in the supply chain space, investors in the supply chain space. And in this showcase event, they're able to go and strike deals with partners that would have been very difficult to find on your own. So that's an interesting program. The call for that one will be out in May, the next cohort. So if you're interested, you can look at our website as well, on our LinkedIn, and you'll see that call. If you're building any supply chain solution in the continent, be on the lookout for that.
What are some of the challenges that you found that makes African innovators miss out?
I think there are about 2 or 3 challenges. One is that it takes time. You need patience. Patience is often lacking because if you're trying to get something and you want to launch it in the market tomorrow, chances are that you'll not succeed, especially in healthcare where it's highly regulated. So we need patience on the entrepreneur side and also patience on the investor side. And Villgrow becomes that patient partner. We stay with our companies for 2, 3, even 4 years sometimes, because we know we're in it for the long haul. Some of them only get to the market by year 3. You need someone who trusts and walks alongside you patiently. The other one is around regulatory. How do we harmonize even better so that when you have your product approved in Kenya, you don't have to repeat. Right now, you have to repeat the same steps. If you go to Uganda, if you go to Tanzania, especially if it's a device, you have to repeat. Sometimes you have to repeat the same steps again and again, unless you have a global approval from a globally recognized entity like the CE mark or the FDA. But more often than not, you're having to repeat yourself. So how do we harmonize better where we say, okay, if this has been approved in Uganda, no need to seek approval in Kenya. We should agree that process is equivalent. And I think GIZ was funding some work around that regulatory harmonization so that these life-saving products can reach other countries faster. So that's another challenge, but is being solved. Then the other one is funding itself. Some companies, when we give them the 50,000 from Villgrow, it becomes the only money they have for a long time before they get any other person to come alongside and invest. So funding becomes a challenge. We would encourage more and more investors to realize that you can make good return on investment in healthcare in Africa. And our numbers show it. We've invested right now about $2.2 million over the last 7 years. Those companies have raised 22 million in follow-on funding. So our leverage there is almost 10 times. In some of those companies, the ones that we hold equity, we've seen the value in our share value in those companies grow 3, 4, 5 times over the last few years. So you can be able to do good and do well financially by investing towards solving Africa's toughest healthcare challenges.
Most of these opportunities need people to have enough capacity to pitch ideas, to come up with this. We talked about these proposals. So when you look and review what is currently on the market, because apart from what you do, you also work with other initiatives. What is the capacity when you look at the capacity of African innovators and investors when they pitch this? And how are you trying to solve that?
Yeah, capacity in terms of human talent, I think we have some of the best, most talented people in the continent. Just need a little bit of coaching, mentorship support, which also is not lacking. Yesterday, we had a call with our new cohort of mentors. We had about 20 people on the call who are willing to give back as mentors in the continent. And these are people who are domain experts in their own areas, in their own fields. I don't think capacity is a big challenge because that one, we have no shortage of human talent. Through mentorship programs, as I've mentioned, you can be able to build the team's capacity. The challenge becomes when someone is not willing to be coached or someone is not coachable, then that becomes a challenge. But more often than not, I don't see capacity as a human capacity is not the biggest challenge. The challenge is the three that I mentioned earlier, right? Things around regulatory, things around investment, among others.
So far, how many people have you supported, and what is the position of women?
Yeah, women are doing as good as everyone else. In our portfolio, 42% of our companies are women-led, and they're doing a fantastic job. Yeah, so we are seeing more and more representation of women. In our portfolio, I think we have done well. I mean, 42%, and this year it could even become 50% women-led innovations. But outside the Villgrow, maybe when you look at now, you zoom out and look at Africa and you look at VC funding, how much money went to women, it was less than 5%. So maybe at a continent, even at a global level, the numbers are the same. So mine is to urge more investors to bet on women, to invest on women innovations, because those are good investments to make.
Thank you, Wilfred, for raising these things that a lot has been done, but more needs to be done on regulatory harmonization and more funding needs to be put. It's interesting to note that most people do not fund, most venture capital funding doesn't go to health because they see it as a risky sector, and also the returns take some time to mature. And also you've talked about less women accessing funds. I'm surprised that you talked about capacity, because the general understanding that most have missed these opportunities because they do not know how to prepare for the pitches. But you've said capacity is not a problem, because there are some other experts willing to. You also said that you are investing in a venture capital fund. And I also know that you also give seed grant. So why the interest in investing in a venture capital fund? The importance of having a health care venture capital fund?
Healthcare is a good investment. You can make good return on investment while touching lives, right? You'll get return on investment. You make your 3x, 5x. And at the same time, you get to transform lives or to touch lives in the continent. That's the reason. In addition, we are one of the few healthcare incubators and funders in the continent. And as we saw last year, only 3% funding went to health. So we need more investors. And that's why we are launching our own fund, what we call an incubator fund platform. This will be a $30 million fund that can then do the next round of funding, which is $200,000 up to $1 million. Help these companies to reach the next phase of growth. Remember, you only achieve impact when you scale, right? If you're only touching 1,000 lives, that's different in terms of impact when you're able to scale that to 1 million lives, for example. So to scale impact, you need capital. And it's the reason why we feel that we need to invest more in healthcare. We want to walk the talk, rather, by actually doing it ourselves and showing others that there's a huge missed opportunity here.
And thank you very much. Listening to you, I'm becoming interested because you said looking at the mathematics is that there is a lot of good return on investment. So people who have money and they don't know where to invest, healthcare is a place that people should invest because it's like food. You need it every day, like transport. I would like to hear your thoughts. What are some of the most outstanding healthcare innovations you have produced that you are proud of, that people should know about and should use them, think to reinvest in them?
The first one would be the Pathology Network. Pathology Network is a digital platform that connects pathologists and allows them to log in remotely and give diagnosis. We're talking about things like histology, biopsy, mostly for cancer diagnosis. Right now, most patients, when you show up at a clinic, they get the sample out of you, and then they hand you the sample in a polythene bag, and you are told to walk to the lab up the road where you'll get further interpretation done. And then you have to chase until you get the results and come back to the doctor with the results. So it's a painful process there are 2-3 stages there for the patient, while with the Pathology Network, they're saying that should be reduced to only one stage, from 3 stages to 1, which means once the sample has been taken, your job is done as a patient. You can go home. They will take care of the logistics. They'll pick the sample, they'll take it to the lab. The lab will prepare the slides. Then they'll upload the slides on the cloud platform, and any pathologist anywhere in the world can log in and give a diagnosis. And then automatically the patient gets a prompt or a notification that your results are ready. So they just go back to the doctor. That has reduced our process, which used to take 3-4 weeks. Now you can, in a matter of days, 2-3 days, you have your results. So that's doing a lot of good, especially in cancer, where we know that time is of essence. The faster that your chances of beating the disease depend highly on how quickly it was diagnosed. We have another company called Irala Health, which is giving handheld medical devices, mostly diagnostic devices, to clinics. In Africa, we have many clinics. I think we have largest clinics per capita than anywhere else in the world. Yet, most of those clinics are under-equipped. They don't have, it's just a clinician or a nurse or sitting on a desk with a stethoscope, and they don't have a lab. They just, most diagnosis is clinical diagnosis. They don't have a way of doing tests. So this company is giving these devices to the clinics at no upfront cost. The clinics can then pay back over time towards the ownership of the device. More information can be found on our website, villgrowafrica.org.
Thank you so much, Wilfred, for sharing your insights, bearing in mind that health is a priority. And as you noted, and it is something that is well known, governments are supposed to invest 10% in health, but most of them have not even invested. So how do you foresee the future, health and innovation in Africa?
Future is bright. We just need more and more people investing back home. I like appealing mostly to the diaspora, where they can give back by way of maybe mentorship. If they are not able to come back, can they mentor startups in this part of the world? They can also invest. They can become angel investors in some of these startups. The future is bright. We are seeing solutions being developed in Africa are being exported to the rest of the world. Right? We have mental health solutions built in Africa that are now being used in places like New York. Because if you solve it for Africa, you're solving it for the baseline. If you solve it for Africa, then you can use the same innovation anywhere else in the world. So there's a lot of opportunity there for transfer of innovation from Africa to the rest of the world. So this is the best place to be this time. And we are lucky that we get to solve some of the most pressing needs of the continent. And thank you so much for having me on this interview. It was an honor.
Thank you so much, Wilfred, for the very interesting information on the importance of Africans to invest in health, because this is a key sector. We all know the challenges that we face every day. Thank you also for the call that people need to invest in health. You are solving a problem, you are saving lives, but you are also creating a better health system for the future. I also like the idea that you can export this technology. And also we need to work as a continent to harmonize these regulatory systems for our innovators to work and provide solutions. Thank you so much for taking time to talk to us and for the excellent work you have done. And we believe that people who have been listening will go to your website, create those solutions that they want. This podcast was developed with support by the African Union through the African Union Agenda 2063 Peak Zone Awards, a partnership with the African Women in Media. Its contents are the sole responsibility of the producer and do not necessarily reflect the views of African Women in Media. Until next time, thank you for tuning in. This is Razia Mwawanga. Goodbye.